across the diaspora, the civil rights and black power movements affirmed the dignity of black people, even in the United States of America. By the early 1970s, the black consciousness movement was teaching a new generation to reject notions of inferiority, to recover their dignity, to reclaim their identity, and to forge their own future. By the time the learners of 1976 took to the streets, they were part of a powerful river of youth resistance. Many students were killed in the streets of Soweto and a number of other townships. Many young people were injured. They were detained and they were forced into exile. The image of Mbuyisa Makubu carrying Hector Peterson in his arms with his sister Antoinette Sithole running alongside conveyed to the world the brutality of apartheid. Their contribution belongs in the center of our national memory. The young people of 1976 did not stand alone. They were supported by their parents, their teachers, by health workers, by religious leaders, by business leaders in their townships, and many other community structures. They were supported by leaders such as Mama Albertina Sisulu, Mama Winnie Madikizela Mandela, the Black Parents Association, and the Soweto Committee of 10. We remember in particular the mothers who searched for their children, the mothers who mourned, and the women who expressed the pain of the nation when apartheid expected them to be silent. The uprising in Soweto did not just remain there. It spread to a number of other townships, to Alexandra, to Tembisa, to Kwatema, and later to Langa, Guguletu, and Nyanga, and various other townships across the country, giving new momentum to the struggle against apartheid. The cries of these young people reverberated across the world, galvanizing the international community to condemn and isolate apartheid South Africa. This year, Youth Day takes place at the intersection of important milestones of our freedom. In addition to the 50th anniversary of the Soweto uprising, we also mark 70 years since the Women's March of 1956, when 20,000 women, the mothers of our nation, marched on the Union buildings and stood in silence for 30 minutes, not moving, not speaking, expressing their rejection of the instruction that they should carry passes. But they were doing much more than that. They were rejecting the system of apartheid. And through their action, they galvanized the struggle against apartheid. We also commemorate the adoption of our Constitution in 1976, 30 years of constitutional democracy in our country. Together, these milestones remind us that freedom was built across generations by the women who resisted the past laws, by the young people who rose against Bantu education, and by a constitution that reflects the views and the aspirations of all the people of South Africa. Now, as we mark the 50th anniversary of the Soweto uprising, we are called upon to ensure that freedom lives in every generation and to reflect honestly on the work that must still be done so that freedom is felt in the lives of every young person today. The South Africa of today is not the South Africa of 1976. We are no longer governed by laws that decide what a black child may learn, where they may live, what work they may do, and what future they may imagine. That change had not come by chance. It was won through struggle, protracted resistance by our people, but it is also protected through our Constitution and advanced through the policies and programs of our democratic government. The youth of 1976 were not the last generation to organize for change. We remember young freedom fighters such as Solomon Mahlangu, the Craddock Four, and also Nokuthula Simelane, and the youth and the student formations that helped to make apartheid ungovernable. In the democratic era, that same spirit continued through the young people advocating for roads must fall and fees must fall movements. And because of these generations of struggle, South Africa has changed fundamentally. The Constitution of our country guarantees the right to basic education. This right did not exist under apartheid. Through legislation such as the South African Schools Act and the Higher Education Act, we dismantled the legal architecture of apartheid education and began building a system founded on equality, access, and redress. Since 1994, access to schooling has been significantly expanded. Today, we have schools where children and their families no longer have to pay fees to go to school, particularly to children from poor households. Under apartheid, every household that took a child to school had to pay big fees to have their children go to school. Today, that has been eliminated. The school nutrition program in our country feeds more than 9 million learners every day of the week. And this does not happen in many other countries that I know of. Only here in South Africa, because of the struggles that were waged by the youth of 1976. And today, therefore, we thank those young people for standing up for the rights that our young learners now enjoy today. So therefore, the youth of 76 must be applauded and recognized for their struggles. Last year, South Africa recorded the highest matric pass rate in our country's history, with more than 2/3 of bachelor passes coming from schools in disadvantaged communities, schools in our townships, schools in our rural areas, have demonstrated that yes, when given the opportunity, they too can raise their education level to a much higher status. We have opened the doors of post-school education and training. This year, the National Student Financial Aid Scheme, NSFAS, approved funding for more than 1 million students at universities and colleges. This is unprecedented and a very historic moment in assisting young people in our country to get their education. Today, our country produces 4 times the number of African graduates than it did in 1994. These are doctors, they are learners, they are engineers, they are nurses, they are scientists, they are entrepreneurs, and they are leaders of our country in many fields and endeavors. Young people are taking their place also in public leadership. Today, more than 80 members of our National Assembly are aged 40 or younger. And today we even have a 22-year-old member of parliament, and that in itself is a great advancement for our democracy. These gains show that democracy has opened doors that apartheid had deliberately closed. And these are some of the gains that the youth of 1976 was fighting for. But opening doors is not enough. The task now is to ensure that those doors that have been opened do lead to skills, to employment, to enterprise ownership, and to dignity. Yes, we agree with the NYDA that much more still needs to be done. And yes, my young sister, we have heard your demands. Your demands are not only 4, they are plentiful. And I have said, having had those 4 direct demands today, I want all the ministers, the deputy ministers, the premiers who are here present, the mayors, the councillors, yes, to craft solutions to the demands that we have made. Those that are responsible must come up with those solutions, yes, and bring them forward to me so that we can respond to you. But I don't know whether we can respond to the demand that young men want enough money to take their girlfriends out to lunch or to dinner. That one I leave to you. However, we must be honest about the challenges before us. More than 4.7 million young people are unemployed in our country. We are not alone as South Africa carrying the burden of unemployment. Many other countries around the world, especially on our continent, are carrying the same burden of the unemployment of young people. The youth unemployment rate stands at 46%, which is totally unacceptable. Behind every statistic is a young person who wants to work, who wants to contribute, and who wants to build a future, and who wants dignity. It is the graduate who sends out, yes, dozens of applications and receives no reply. It is the young entrepreneur with an idea but no access to capital. It is the skilled artisan who cannot find an opportunity to demonstrate their own talents. We cannot accept this as normal. Young people are among the most affected by violent crime and theft. These are some of the greatest threats to our country's prosperity and to social stability in our country. Faced with these challenges, there are some who blame the problems of unemployment and crime and poor service delivery on foreign nationals. Even as we recognize the challenge of illegal immigration, of having undocumented migrants in our country, which we are taking decisive action to address, our problems are in the main our own problems, and which we have a responsibility to fix ourselves, working together. We recognize that many communities are frustrated by crime, unemployment, and the pressure on public services. Now, these frustrations are real, and we can never dismiss them. I addressed the nation the other day, and I acknowledged that these are the cries and these are the challenges that our people are experiencing. But we must also be honest about the causes of these challenges. The roots of these challenges lie in primarily the inequality that we have inherited from our past. Yes, many say we should stop blaming our past, but it is our past that continues to cast a shadow on the future that our people aspire to. Yes, slow economic growth is also a cause of these challenges, as I said, and also the weaknesses in service delivery are also causes of the challenges that we are going through. Meeting someone who was an ambassador in the United States, who was a British citizen, he said to me, he had lived in the United States for many, many years, and in a number of other countries, also on the African continent, and he said he could see that the past that had been imposed on black people who became slaves in the United States and the Caribbean islands, yes, and the colonialism that had been imposed on many people on our African continent continues to be a legacy that casts that shadow on the future that we all aspire to. And so therefore, the past is something that we have to deal with. We have to address. We can never say that that past does not exist. And it is this that we are dealing with. And addressing these challenges does require practical solutions, not the scapegoating of vulnerable people. The challenges facing young people are grave, and their concerns are real. And we heard them earlier from the chairman of the National Youth Development Agency. That is why our response to these challenges must be both comprehensive and urgent. In this regard, our government is acting on a number of fronts, but principally on 3 fronts. First, we are expanding public employment, youth service and workplace experience. More than 5.7 million young people are now registered on the SA Youth Mobi platform. Of these, more than 2 million young people have gained access to earning opportunities. as young people flight their own CVs and details. On that platform, employers across our country are able to see what their capabilities are. And as we speak today, more than 2 million of them have been able to access earning opportunities that are advancing their lives. And this platform, having been initiated by government together with a number of other institutions, is working for young people. The Presidential Employment Stimulus has created work and livelihood opportunities for more than 2.5 million unemployed South Africans. Of these, 82% were young people and 66% were women. Now that is important, and this talks to the development that is taking place. Through the pilot phase of the Job Boost Outcomes Fund, we've got more than 9,000 young people who have been enrolled and more than 7,000 successfully placed in employment. And this is a jobs fund that is continuing to gather momentum and will in the end be getting young people to get employment opportunities. This shows the potential of training that is linked to employment opportunities. The revitalized National Youth Service has placed more than 130,000 young people in paid service opportunities to date, with more than 100,000 community service youth employment opportunities. This is progress. We are moving forward. Now, these interventions give young people a foothold in the world of work, but they are not the final destination. That is why our overarching priority at the moment is to grow an inclusive economy that creates sustainable jobs at scale. Second, we are reshaping the skills system so that qualifications that young people get should lead more directly to work and experience. We are moving away from training for training's sake. We are moving away from training to give young people certificates. We want them to get the certificate and to work at the same time. That is the important destination that we are going to. That is why we are strengthening the TVET college system as engines of occupational skills and linking colleges, employers, and our SETAs to the needs of local economies. This linkage is going to produce great results. We have seen it work in other countries. We've seen it work in countries that have excelled in the manufacturing sector, countries that have excelled in entrepreneurship. Skills are not formed in the classrooms alone. They are formed in the workplace, in industries, communities, and enterprises. That is the destination we are headed in. And we are making all efforts to get cooperation from all key stakeholders, the private sector, as well as all other institutions and stakeholders. Third, we are opening the productive economy to young people. Over the next 3 years, the state is investing 1 trillion rand in infrastructure, which is unprecedented in the history of our country, where we are going to be improving the infrastructure of our country by leaps and bounds. We are building and maintaining the roads in our country. building our dams, our schools, our hospitals, our clinics, our electricity lines, railway lines, and port infrastructure. This investment will create apprenticeships, artisan development, skills transfer, enterprise development for young people. Our growth strategy is essentially focused on sectors that create jobs at scale, in the manufacturing sector, in the mining sector, in the digital infrastructure, in agriculture, in the green industrialization, in energy, in logistics, in critical minerals, in tourism, and the creative economy. Young people must be an integral part of all these industries. And yes, as I go around visiting many industries, as I go around visiting many factories, I'm always impressed by finding young people at the head of a number of those industries, where in the past you would just find old white people operating to the exclusion of women, both black and white, to the exclusion of young people. Today, you find that young people, both men and women, are leading in those type of manufacturing and industrial settings. Now, we want young people to be trained for these industries, to work in them, to build businesses in those industries, and to own a part of them. The small business portfolio will provide support to 1 million micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises over this term of government. And that in itself is a phenomenal advance that we must all welcome, that young people are now being put in the forefront of entrepreneurship. The Public Procurement Act gives us also the opportunity to use the buying power of the state to support enterprises that are owned by young people, that are owned by women, that are owned by persons with disabilities. These preferences are going to allow us to develop the skill base of young people, empower the women of our country, and give great opportunities to people with disabilities. Unemployment must be seen as a societal problem. As correctly said earlier, it is not the problem of government alone. Yes, this is a problem that keeps me awake at night. This keeps my ministers awake. It is an overriding problem for all of us. But all stakeholders in our country must work together to provide sustainable solutions to reduce unemployment, especially among young people. Government has a responsibility and to continuously take action to address this problem. However, the private sector also has a responsibility to also address the challenge of unemployment. I want to speak directly to the private sector today and to say to every business owner, every manager, every person who holds in their hands the power to hire, and say the young person in front of you does not lack ability. They lack only one thing, the chance to prove themselves that they are capable. That is what they lack. So the young people of our country are saying, give us an opportunity. Give us an opportunity to demonstrate what we are capable of. I'm asking the private sector to open the doors of employment. The government has opened the doors of learning. Today, the doors of learning are open, and we say to the private sector, who is the biggest employer in any economy, and our economy as well, we say open your doors to the employment of young people. Hire young people for potential, not for experience. And that is why we say we must do away with this requirement for experience. We must hire young people and give them a chance to get into the world of employment. And I say to the private sector, government will not ask you to carry that risk alone. Through the employment tax incentive, we already share the cost of bringing young people into their first job. We will strengthen that support because the first job is the hardest one to get and the most important in the lives of young people. We must change how we prepare young people for their beginning. We therefore call upon employers to hire a young person and not to have to require them to have experience before you hire them. Bring them in and give them the experience. Bring them in and give them the jobs. As the country prepares for the next local government elections, we must place young people at the center of building municipalities that work. Young people must not only be councillors, they must be the engineers in our local government. They must be the planners, the town planners and the city planners. They must be the artisans who work in our local government. They must be water technicians, electricians, data specialists, and entrepreneurs who build sustainable towns, cities, and villages. Our progress as a nation must be measured on whether young people are moving from school to skills, from skills to work, and from enterprise support to markets, to scale, and to ownership. This is how we honor the youth of 1976, by building a South Africa in which every young person has a fair chance to learn, to work, to earn, to serve, to build, to create, to own, and to live with dignity. That is the South Africa that the youth of 1976 sacrificed their lives for. Across South Africa, there are 37 million young people under the age of 35. This is our country's strongest strength. The youthfulness of our population provides our country with a dynamism, an innovativeness, and potential productivity that few other countries outside our continent can match. This generation must take its place in every part of national life, in the economy, in public institutions, in our communities, in innovation, in culture, and in the work of building and strengthening our democracy. Young people of 1976 remind us that freedom is not protected by memory alone. It is protected by active citizenship, by organization, by discipline, by service, and by responsibility. Today's generation has tools that the youth of 1976 did not have. They have technology, they have information, and platforms that can connect communities, expose injustice, and build enterprises. Technology must be matched by purpose, organization, and commitment to the good of our country. As we look to the future, young people must be at the center of democratic participation. They must register to vote. They must vote in the elections of their country so as to determine the future of this beautiful country that we have. They must engage in municipalities, and they must hold public representatives accountable. Democracy is not only what happens in Parliament and in the legislatures of our provinces or in the councils of our municipalities. It is also built in our schools, in our university campuses, in our college precincts, in our churches, in our sports fields, in community halls, and the streets and the homes of our country. President Nelson Mandela said at the birth of our democracy that the time to build is upon us. This is the responsibility of our lifetime, to ensure that young people have the opportunity, the support and confidence to build their own lives and to shape the future of our country. Let us honor the youth of 1976, not only by remembering their courage, their sacrifice, but by continuing the work for which they sacrificed so much. Let us build a South Africa in which freedom lives in every generation going forward. 50 years ago, the youth of 1976 marched for the right to learn. They faced down bullets, armed with nothing but the conviction that their minds mattered. Today's generation inherits that courage, but the battle has changed. The youth of 1976 fought exclusion. They fought oppression. Ours must fight unemployment, poverty, and inequality. Theirs was the struggle to enter the classroom. Ours is the struggle to ensure that what begins in the classroom does not end in the unemployment queues. Just as they refuse the limits imposed upon them, we too must refuse a future of diminished possibilities. So therefore, we are called upon to build and to craft a South Africa where every young person can realize their potential. So we must build a future. We must build a South Africa in which freedom lives continuously in the hearts of all South Africans. So let us honor the youth of 1976, not only in words, but in deeds. And that is why the demands that have been put forward must be actualized and they must be addressed. So let us build a South Africa where every young person can, as we implement the aspirations of our young people, can realize their potential, where opportunity is not the privilege of a few, but the birthright of all. A South Africa in which freedom lives anew in every generation. This is what the youth of 1976 rose and marched for, and this is what they sacrificed for. Let us help to realize the dreams that they had. And I have great confidence that we can fulfill those dreams, working together, all of us pulling in the same direction, building a South Africa that we can all be proud of. So on this day, as we commemorate 50 years of the uprising of young people in our country who helped to change the course of the history of our country and the future of our country, let us all say, Forward to the young people of South Africa, forward. Forward to the young people of South Africa, forward. Amandla. Ngiyabonga. Thank you very much.
That's President Cyril Ramaphosa there wrapping his keynote address here at the FNB Stadium at the 50th commemoration of the 1976 youth uprising. And he speaks about the issues that are facing young people today. The big one is the issue of unemployment and access when it comes to education, because as much as the doors have been opened for more young people, you still have a lot more young people who are still without education. Others have education, but they still are without jobs. So the debate continues, and the focus on poverty also continues as far as young people are concerned. So we'll continue then to just bring you his particular address throughout the course of the afternoon and evening with various bulletins, but also at the same time some analysis looking at this particular speech and different programs, of course, that are being put in place for young people, and if in fact they're meaningfully helping to address some of the crises that are facing young people in 2026. And that's where we leave it for this part of the program, the broadcast of the official commemoration of the 50th anniversary of the 1976 youth uprising. Bridget is coming up next with the Full Circle. Have yourselves a good afternoon.
A big thank you to Bongiwe Zwane for holding things down for the better part of the afternoon. Indeed, President Cyril Ramaphosa held the official Youth Day commemorations in Soweto, and this year's event focusing a lot on resetting government's commitment to improving the lives of youth. Just about 5 minutes before he wrapped up his speech, he made reference to the fact that we need to prepare young people for their beginning. The program included a wreath-laying ceremony at the Hector Peterson Memorial Site, and that, of course, followed the main commemoration event at the FNB Stadium precinct. It is our past that continues to cast a shadow into the challenges that we face today, and skills are not formed in classrooms alone. They formed in the workspaces, and we're working with key stakeholders to arrive to that destination. And those are the promises, some of the promises that have been made by President Cyril Ramaphosa. It is 1:30 on the dot, on the Full Circle with myself, Bridget Masinga, right here on SAfm.
Make sure you don't miss out as the Thabo Mbeki Foundation, in collaboration with Classics on Turf, pay tribute to the life and music of Tio Soga in a concert led by Mandisi Yankees with the Renaissance Singers, the Chamber Orchestra of Johannesburg, conducted by Kutlwano Masote. The concert takes place on Saturday, the 20th of June, 7 p.m. at the Wits Great Hall. Tickets are available from web tickets at 300 Rand each. Honoring the legacy of Tio Soga, made possible by Webhold and supported by SAfm.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal provides tough professional lawyers for an affordable monthly premium. Our range of plans include cover for you, your spouse, children, and extended family. Plans include cover for civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Whether it's protection orders, gender-based violence, uncontested divorce, or poor service, your Clientele Legal lawyer will be there to assist you. Our services are convenient. Simply pick up the phone and call your lawyer or send us an email and we'll get back to you. All plans include a bail benefit of up to 5,000 Rand and we'll go to the police station and pay it for you. Plus, Clientele Legal offers you 24-hour telephonic legal advice. Join today. SMS SAfm to 32195. That's SAfm to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
Topco Media presents the 25th Annual Top Empowerment Conference in partnership with Nedbank, taking place on the 17th and 18th of June at the Sandton Convention Center. This is the year that South Africa's empowerment rules get rewritten, with both the Minister of Trade and Industry and the Minister of Finance and 800 of the leaders shaping what comes next. To secure your seat, head to Quicket, search Top Empowerment and use the code SABC for 20% off. Book today before the codes change without you.
Make sure you don't miss out as the Thabo Mbeki Foundation, in collaboration with Classics on Turf, pay tribute to the life and music of Tio Soga in a concert led by Mandisi Yankees with the Renaissance Singers, the Chamber Orchestra of Johannesburg, conducted by Kutlwano Masote. The concert takes place on Saturday, the 20th of June, 7 p.m. at the Wits Great Hall. Tickets are available from web tickets at 300 Rand each, honoring the legacy of Tio Soga, made possible by Webhold and supported by SAfm.
Keep moving through 6 a.m. call times, the rain, dirt tracks, and moving through tight deadlines. Because you move with purpose, from the first stop to the final drop. The Hino 700 truck tractor comes standard with a 6-year drivetrain warranty and advanced safety features tailored to your industry. The Hino 700 is built to fuel your business's progress. Hino, all the way.
It's Powerball Jackpot Tuesday time, and this Tuesday you have a chance to win over 160 million Rand in total Powerball estimated jackpots. Catch the live draw this Tuesday at 9 p.m. on SABC2. You could also become SA's next multi-millionaire. Yes, you. The National Lottery. More plays, more money, more chances, more millions rather. Players must be 18 years and older and play responsibly. The National Lottery is officially operated by SAfm.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
A hearty good afternoon to you on this fine Tuesday as we get on with conversations around June 16. It is the Full Circle with myself, Bridget Masinga, on SAfm, leading the conversations that move the nation. And today we are bringing you a special youth-driven broadcast of the show as we simulcast with the guys out at Radio Turf, and that is the University of Limpopo. They're going to be joining us in the second hour of the show with their host Neo Ramashapa, who will host the midday experience on campus. That's coming up in just under 30 minutes or so. For now, though, we're going to bring you a conversation that looks at Soweto Uprising, a documentary history. It launched this Youth Month. We're going to be talking to political studies lecturer at Wits University and author Julian Brown around this. Julian, good afternoon to you. How are you doing?
Good afternoon, Bridget. Very well, and it's a pleasure to be on the radio with you.
Thank you so much for the time. Much appreciated. So today marks the 50th anniversary of June 16, 1976, the Soweto uprisings. It's been many conversations held up until this moment commemorating those events that essentially changed the trajectory of South African history. I mean, let's reflect back firstly before we even get into the project. Let's reflect back on the significance of the events of that day and the charge that was led by that generation of South African youth.
Thanks very much. I think the real significance of what happened on June the 16th, and I think this is very important to emphasize, in the months and the better part of a year that followed, when the rest of the country followed in the footsteps of the youth of Soweto, was the rise of a new generation of activists and a new form of protest that the apartheid state was not prepared for and couldn't manage in the way it had been managing protest in the previous decade. The youth of Soweto started the final phase of the collapse of apartheid, and although it took another 15 to 20 odd years, everything that followed 1976 did so in the footsteps of those students.
And so important that acknowledgement as history continues to write itself, that acknowledgement of that youth igniting that final phase that ended the apartheid regime, and also understanding the psychology perhaps and the focused determination of that youth, especially because in most of the conversation we tend to juxtapose the youth of 76 with the youth of 2026.
Yes, I think that's true. I think the two things to say to that. The first is with this particular book, what I have tried to do by making a documentary history is to include very lengthy extracts and documents from the time so that we can understand the range of ideas and the range of debates that were taking place among the youth in the years leading up to 1976 and the months and the years afterwards, so that we don't read backwards our present moment into history, but see the language, the words, the conceptual frameworks that young people had in the mid-1970s. And the second point is that youth are always, whether it is 50 years ago or today, at the cutting edge of protest, at the cutting edge of politics, because it is the youth who see a future that those of us who are not likely to be around in 50 years' time, perhaps, will not live in. And so we are dependent to a great extent on every new generation reinventing struggles and remaking them for a new era.
Absolutely. Let's take a quick pause, Julian. We'll come back on the other side and continue our conversation. We're in conversation with political studies lecturer at Wits University and author of the book Soweto Uprising, a documentary history.
50 years later, Youth Month, The Voices.
In 1976, we, the class of 76, threw stones against apartheid, and we saw it falling into pieces. Now, fellow South Africans, I'm particularly referring to you young people. There is no more time to be throwing stones. It is time now to be gathering stones so that we can build a South Africa that we want, and the South Africa that will be owned by you as young people. Time to be gathering stones, South Africa.
Different generations, different experiences. One South Africa. 50 years later. Only on SAfm, leading the conversations that move us.
The public is invited to nominate persons who have an expertise or knowledge in the field of broadcasting, journalism and media and/or broadcasting law and related fields for an ad hoc appointment to the Appointment Committee of the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. 3 committee members will be appointed to serve a 4-year term from August 2026 to the 31st of December 2029. Persons with a financial interest in the broadcast or printed media industry are not eligible. Motivated nominations and nominees' acceptance and a short CV should be addressed to the registrar on the email bccsa@nabsa.co.za. Nominations close on the 17th of June 2026. For more information on the tasks of the Appointment Committee for the Broadcasting Complaints Commission, visit www.bccsa.co.za and see the Constitution. Only the best qualified nominees will be called for an interview.
Bridget Masinga, weekdays on The Full Circle.
All right, we are in conversation with Julian Brown, political studies lecturer at Wits University and author of the book Soweto Uprising, a documentary history. Let's talk about the research element, perhaps, Julian, of this particular piece of literature, because this is a researched account of one of the most significant events in the country. And you drew a lot from a variety of materials in order to curate the pages of Soweto Uprising, a documentary history. How long does it begin to take to sort of correlate all of that information and filter all of it? And also, was there... one of the themes leading up to today in conversations that we've had with authors, historians, activists, thespians, people who are busy currently producing works that speak to June 16, is there seems to be this focus on telling the stories that weren't the mainstream headline story associated with June 16. And I wonder for you, what was the approach in putting together Soweto Uprising?
Well, thank you again very much, Bridget. I suppose an honest answer is it's taken me 20 years. I've been working on either the uprising or the issues around it for quite a long time now. But the actual book itself is an attempt to draw together from a wide range of existing resources that are not necessarily easily available to non-academics. So to incorporate, for example, transcripts of testimony to the Commission of Inquiry that the apartheid state instituted in 1976, and witness statements from police officers and tortured students to trials that followed. To put those alongside the interviews conducted by other academics in the 1980s and the 1990s that tried to bring together these relatively ordinary voices, the voices of people who were not the leaders of the movement, but the participants in it, and to allow us to see how all of these different groups of people, all of these different participants, expressed themselves at the time and in the immediate aftermath and understood what they were doing. It is important not just to restore the voices of those who were not leaders, although I think that is absolutely vital, and others have done a very good job on this, but to remember the longer history of the uprisings. One of the dangers of a commemoration like today is that we come to think of June 16th as a singular moment, a one-off day of protest, and we tend to underplay the fact that Soweto and then the rest of the Witwatersrand and then Durban and Port Elizabeth and Cape Town and areas around the homelands of the period all exploded into protests over June, July, August, September, October, throughout the rest of the year. And that the real significance of the uprising is not just the tragedies, the horror, and the bravery of today, although that is obviously very important, but the way in which it sparked a whole new generation, a new form of protest that persisted for not just the immediate weeks afterwards, but months and years that followed.
And it's so important what you say, Julian, because yesterday we had Ubab Seth Mazibugo, who's one of those surviving youth activists, and really a voice that continues to reverberate around June 16. And he pointed out exactly that. He's like, lest we forget, it was a catalytic event that really, and he outlined the timelines of the conversations that had happened, obviously, for weeks and months leading up to, but that the decision to go to protest on the 16th was taken on the 13th. And the kids mobilized themselves within 3 days, but just like you, emphasizing the catalytic nature of the events, that we must never forget that it then continued beyond June 16, whether it was the imprisonment and the punishment of particular youth leaders who then served prolonged sentences, whether it was universities in KZN and other areas that also literally, started burning to the ground in protest, or figuratively started burning to the ground in protest, because we've cast our focus on just the one day, when the day, in fact, symbolizes an entire mobilization that was prolonged.
I think that's right. And I think perhaps that links to the question you asked earlier about the youth of 2026. One of the key things that we need to understand about 1976 is that none of the organizers of the March of the 16th understood or imagined or could have hoped for the response that followed. Nobody wanted the police to be violent, and nobody thought that this would lead to the students responding in kind. Nobody imagined that 6 months later, students in Cape Town would still be protesting in support of the students in Soweto. In other words, we never know where the event is going to lead us. And every protest is a potential failure, but it is also potentially the start of a revolutionary change.
Absolutely. You've written other titles as well through the course of your career that really archive and other historical moments in South African history, and that includes Marikana, A People's History, The Road to Soweto Resistance and the Uprising of June 1976. For you, what stands out when one embarks on this research? Because you get to look at these events not only from a citizen's eye and someone who's lived through some of them, but you also get to analyze them from an academic lens. And I'm sure that offers a different kind of perspective to what I might have or what Joe and Sipho who are listening to us might have.
I never know how privileged the academic position should be, because I think Joe and Sipho, whoever is listening, are more than capable of understanding the events they're living through themselves. But if I were to highlight one idea that I think doesn't get expressed often enough in public discourse, it's that our history, South Africa's history, its anti-apartheid history and its post-apartheid history, is a history of protest. Protest is at the absolute core of our democracy, the right and the ability of ordinary citizens, ordinary people, ordinary communities to come together and insist that their voices be heard. Democracy is not just the institutions of the state, as important as they are, but it is the possibility of all of us to speak and be heard and to insist upon our perspectives, no matter how uncomfortable that might be.
You know, as you mentioned that it is the history of protest is our history, and of course it is a democratically protected right. In what we are seeing now in the present day, you know, with the anti-immigration marches, and all those organizations that are driving that, I wonder though, have we reached the point perhaps where we don't understand the magnitude of that right and the responsibility, the equally important responsibility that comes with it? Because yesterday, for instance, Seth Mazibuko said, even though the kids literally lit the country on fire, what they did not do was destroy a single piece of infrastructure that spoke to their development. No school, no university, no community center, nothing that spoke to their development as a collective was harmed.
Our current moment is a moment that demonstrates that the right to protest and the necessity of protest is not always a comfortable one. I have huge, enormous political problems with the current wave of xenophobic popular protest and movements, but I think that the way to address them is to show, through mobilization and action, that as I firmly believe, the vast majority of South Africans do not accept those politics. And we have a real danger in allowing one particular voice, a minority voice, I believe, to dominate our understandings of what people believe in. If you look at a movement like Abishlali Basa and Ndolo in Natal and elsewhere, it is a movement of shack dwellers, of people who live very often on the periphery of society, who have taken a repeated and principled stance against xenophobia and in response to these marches. I believe that that is the way we have to address them, because we are a democracy that involves allowing people we disagree with passionately to speak, but it does not mean allowing them to be the only ones who speak.
Absolutely. Julian Brown, we appreciate the time with you this afternoon. That book again, Soweto Uprising, a documentary history. And Julian is going to be in conversation with Koketso Moeti at the Love Books in Melville, Johannesburg. If you find yourself there on Tuesday, the 23rd of June, you might want to diarize that. It's gone 10 to 2 o'clock. A quick pause on our end, and then we'll come back on the other side.
Keep moving through 6 a.m. call times, the rain, dirt tracks, and moving through tight deadlines. Because you move with purpose, from the first stop to the final drop. The Hino 700 truck tractor comes standard with a 6-year drivetrain warranty and advanced safety features tailored to your industry. The Hino 700 is built to fuel your business's progress. Hino, all the way.
Oh, yebo. Club Soweto. Yebo Fit Point Show. In 1976, youth switcher on, and for 50 years, the nation has watched as the story unfolds. And namhlanje, courage looks the same and different. It looks like showing up when no one believes in you. It's about finding the strength to stand up again. The courage of 1976 is appealing in 2026. SAPC 1, Zanzi for sure. The source of youth courage. My God.
In case you missed it,
Bafana may be beaten, but do we have a reason to hope, sir? I certainly hope we do. Can we keep our hope alive in the words of King Luther Vandross?
Thank you, Luther, for keeping the faith in us. And somewhere this morning, Bafana fans are keeping the faith as well. I mean, listen, the coffee's strong, but you know what? The faith is stronger.
that was National Briefing with Kathy Mutlatlana.
All right. Here's the thing about insurance. You only find out how good it is when it's time to claim. With OUTsurance, you've got that peace of mind. The Ombudsman, an independent body that rules on complaints, confirmed that in their 2025 annual report that OUTsurance had the lowest overturned ratio of complaints. Isn't it time you switch to the insurer where you always get something out? Call 08 600 60,000 or visit outsurance.co.za today. OUTsurance is a licensed insurer and FSP, and T's and C's do apply.
Bridget Masinga on SAfm.
All right, we thought we'd bring you a feel-good focus this afternoon and catch up with grade 10 student Ruby Banchek, who is a debate champion competing around the world. From Redham House, Bedford View, Ruby is gaining international recognition after competing at one of the world's most prestigious student debating tournaments out in Massachusetts, the Harvard College World Schools Invitational 2026. How are you doing this afternoon, Ruby?
Hi, I'm getting you.
I'm fantastic, cannot complain. So do we start firstly by congratulating you on the plethora of achievement and really just showcasing your debating prowess on a world stage. What is it about debating?
Thank you so much. I've always had a connection towards this idea of speaking in public spaces. So I think that definitely contributes a lot towards it. But I think overall, like, debating just is something so special to me because it's the idea that I can use my voice for powerful things and to create change, not only in the debating circuit, but also outside of the debating circuit.
Oh, I love that. And we definitely need more young people who, vocalize their opinions and their perspective and ensure that it is heard. How has the experience broadened your perspective and also just your passion for debate?
I think definitely competing on an international level has kind of forced me to engage with the way that other countries and other nations perceive things. So that's definitely a new perspective that I've gauged in terms of like different topics and stuff about like how different countries see things, and it is quite different in like comparison to how we attack emotions. But I think it's obviously impacted because I think I've grown a lot as a debater, definitely with my experience. So I think seeing these different perspectives has helped me grow as a debater.
Are there perspectives that stick out in your head, perhaps, that have been ingrained in your mind where you've walked away thinking, well, that's interesting?
I think definitely, especially when we went to Harvard, big ideas of corruption and like evolving around Africa, there were very different perspectives of it. Like the West sees ideas of corruption very differently to how we do. And it was quite weird to me because it's a very it comes across as a sense of like they think that they're very I don't know, it was a very weird experience, but it's definitely, that was one of the biggest things that caught my eye, along with the rest of my teammates who were just quite confused about it all because it's not obviously something that you expect.
I cannot wait to see the kind of leadership, in fact, that stems out of yourself and your debating team, because it already sounds as though you awakened to so many things, and your approach and how you filter and process just social dynamics, political dynamics, obviously at your tender age already. Very much more broader and more objective than even most adults.
Yeah, definitely. I have to say, like, the opportunities that I've been given I'm very grateful for them. And I do think that they have greatly contributed to just the way I think I not only compose myself in conversation in terms of very controversial topics. I think that is also a big thing that it's helped me with.
I was just watching the president giving the commemoration for June 16, the 50 years of, and part of his closing remarks at the tail end of his speech, he said, we need to prepare young people for their beginning. Do you feel as though that sentiment is true as a young person in 2026, preparing in a few years to go out there into the big wide world? Do you feel that collectively as a country, South Africa has done justice in preparing its youth?
I think that's a tricky question. I do agree. I think South Africa, I do agree that the youth in South Africa are very powerful. I think we have the capacity to do so much. And I think leading back to 50 years ago, it just shows you how much power young people had, and that they had ideas of reform and change, and that they had the urgency to make it happen. So I think celebrating Youth Day today, I think it's important because I think that is something that ignites the youth. So I wouldn't necessarily say systemically South Africa has set up the youth to be empowering. I would say the youth has set themselves up to have the capacity to make the change.
Listen, if the president is listening right now, I hope he's taking heed of what you've just said. As we begin to wrap up, you're preparing for the World Schools Debate Academy in Slovenia. Tell me a little about that.
Yes, so I'm going to Slovenia with my team to represent South Africa. So this is where we have our Protea ties, everything. So it's very exciting, very nerve-wracking. We leave on Friday, and I'm in the midst of exams, so it's quite stressful, but I'm very excited. I'm hoping that the team does well, and I'm really excited to have the opportunity to experience international countries, and especially with my team, because I've formed such strong connections with them.
Absolutely. Well, we wish you the very best of luck with the competition, and please do keep us posted what happens there in Slovenia. Ruby Banchek, thank you so much for the time, and congratulations once again for flying the South African colours high internationally with your debate team. That was 16-year-old Ruby Banchek from Redham House, Bedfordview, preparing to go off to the World Schools Debate Academy in Slovenia with her team after competing at the Cambridge in Massachusetts in the Harvard College World Schools Invitational. It's 2:00. Greg House is coming through with the news. I think it's the first time this year so far on the public holidays that I've actually said Greg House as opposed to Ondela Mbana.
Indeed, and thank you. Ramaphosa praises the youth of 1976, and Bafana Bafana prepares for their next World Cup encounter. Good afternoon to you on this Youth Day. President Cyril Ramaphosa has described the 1976 Soweto student uprising as a courageous generation for facing bullets with bare hands. Today marks the commemoration of the historic uprising when police shot dead young people demonstrating against the apartheid education system. Ramaphosa delivered the keynote address at the National Youth Day event at the FNB Stadium in Johannesburg.
On June the 16th, the children of Soweto walked out of their classrooms and into history. They were told that they could not learn in their own languages, in their own country, and on equal terms. They refused that limit, and many of them paid for that refusal with their lives.
Meanwhile, a march to commemorate 50 years of the 1976 Soweto uprising is underway in Soweto. Youth from various NGOs, universities and political parties took part in today's march, which was organised by one of the student leaders in 1976 and a former Robben Island detainee, Seth Mazibuko.
Amandla! Long live Tsiatsi Mashinini! Long live! Long live Kgotso Siacholo! Long live! Fellow compatriots, where we are standing, we refer to it as the confrontation corner. Amaphoyisa on June 16 came from that direction. The next thing that happened, they released tear gas canisters.
Action SA City of Cape Town mayoral candidate Darylene James has come out in support of March and March's protest in Sea Point. It forms part of the group's nationwide campaign, which they've called on government to deport all undocumented foreign nationals by June 30th. James elaborates.
To reclaim this country, to reclaim our businesses unapologetically without fear and favor. That is why I'm here. This march is not only to send a message to black foreign undocumented nationals. It's a message for everyone who's in this country, undocumented.
The N4 toll road in Mpumalanga has now been opened to traffic. The road was closed for several hours following a crash between a minibus taxi and a truck this morning. 8 occupants in the taxi died and 2 others were taken to hospital with serious injuries. Bafana will jet into Atlanta and Georgia in the US later tonight for a pivotal moment in their Soccer World Cup campaign against Czechia on Thursday. Both teams lost their opening matches, Bafana against Mexico and Czechia against South Korea. Sharon Bryce Peace reports.
South Africa entered the tournament carrying enormous momentum simply by qualifying for their first World Cup since 2010, but also topping their qualifying group. However, the opening 2-0 defeat to Mexico means the Czechia match has effectively become a must-win encounter if Hugo Broos's side hopes to reach the knockout rounds in the competition. Against the tournament co-hosts, South Africa showed periods of discipline and organisation, but struggled to create enough attacking threats, while 2 red cards didn't help the cause. The Czechia game now offers a chance to reset, and a positive result would immediately revive belief in the team's chances before the final group match against South Korea. Sherman Bryceby's SABC News, Atlanta.
The top story, President Ramaphosa described the 1976 Soweto student uprising as a courageous generation for facing bullets with bare hands. That's SAfm News. I'm Greg Hoss.
SAfm 105 FM in Polokwane.
Catch Top Billing this Youth Day Tuesday evening at 7 as vlogger Snigiwe Sneem Mhlongo finds her mom the best travel companion. Designer Tina Ngogolo marries Xhosa tradition with modern styling. And Geordie and Debbie Osler plant a forest, then build themselves a treehouse of a home. That's Top Billing this Tuesday at 7. Repeat Sunday at 1 on S3 and Tuesday at 9:30 p.m. on SABC1.
To cards. Love it.
Let's clear your cart when I can.
For real?
Yeah, bo. With my cashback from MyWay, I will be getting 10% of my premiums back for staying claim-free for 2 years. So I'll have some extra cash to spoil you and let you live your way.
Dad, you're the best.
Real people, real cars, real rewards. For a quote, visit myway.co.za. My cashback is a feature on qualifying products paid after 2 claim-free years and all premiums paid. Premiums are risk profile dependent. MyWay is a licensed non-life insurer and FSB. T's and C's apply. MyWay. Live your way.
Late night lockouts happen, and standing outside with keys on the wrong side of the door is never ideal. With Santam building cover, clients get access to emergency services, including locksmith assistance when it matters the most. The problem gets sorted without damage or drama. Insure nice and not twice. Call 0860 444 444 to get a quote today. Santam, this is freedom.
From the class of 1976 to the generation of TikTok, AI, and unemployment, the conversation continues on SAfm, leading the conversations that move us.
re ka se fofe bale re fofile modimo re dirile di chopa are be ba re bietse melaba banana re ka se fofe bale re fofile modimo re dirile di chopa
Below. Yeah. Orlo jagari sisibele. Anabela wambi jamako. I want my bella the vocalist. I beg legi afford. Ona muna tendelena. I beg legi afford. Ona muna tendelena. I beg legi afford. Ona muna tendelena. I beg legi afford. Ona muna tendelena.
Exe chapo fere. Pinta. House pipal. Pero etada. Exe chapo fere. Pinta. House pipal. Pero etada. Senaga de senalia. Senaga de senali. Ulaya na ma. Galeri pusha samsokolo. Norisha pagali kokolo. Batoma hutala samokolo. Seriba chule la snowbolo. Abashwe. Galeri pusha samsokolo. Norisha pagali kokolo. Batoma hutala samokolo. Riba chule la snowgono. Ai exe. Dari wetala. Exe chapo fere. Pinta. House pipal. Dari wetala. Exe chapo fere.
Anabela wambi jamako. Anabela wambi jamako.
All right, a little bit of a youthful flavor to the full circle this afternoon. Shandesh and Muzzle, they told me, I'm not even going to pretend to be in the loop. I'm not going to pretend to be in the know. Like, I'm not going to pretend like these are my vibes, but I kind of liked it. I kind of liked it. There's a dance that goes with Bacardi. Yeah, we were trying to do the Bacardi this side in Johannesburg. Ish, but Shakira once said these hips don't lie. So that was Shandesh with Muzzle. Di Choppa is the name of this particular song, and it comes to us courtesy of Neo Ramashapa, who is the host of the Midday Experience out at Radio Turf at the University of Limpopo. We did say today is Youth Day, and for the last couple of years we've been engaging young people in broadcasting, and today is no different. We're doing a simulcast with the gang. How are y'all? Dumelang Sanbonani Nijani. How is Limpopo?
Hi, Bridget. Bridget, how are you doing, man? We're doing so much great and we are so excited. It's a big day for us. It's Youth Day. It's actually a day for us to be celebrating and having meaningful conversations. We are so excited. How are you?
We are fantastic. We're great this side in Johannesburg. I think my team and I are looking forward to engaging yourself, Neo, and your guests during this hour, reflecting on the significance of the day, from your perspective, particularly as young people. But before we get to that, let's talk a little bit about yourself. So you are a graduate in psychology from the University of Limpopo. You're also, of course, the midday host there. So which comes first, the love of broadcast media or the love of psychology?
You know what? Let me tell you, Bridget, the funny part is I'm caught between a rock and a hard place because both fields mean so much to me. And I think the exciting part about it is that I can use, this platform to actually, educate where I can and just intervene in my smallest, studio for all the listeners in terms of psychoeducation and helping them understand psychology better. So if they work both together so great, so I don't see why I should let go of the other. And I guess with time we'll see which one wins, but then so far the two are winning so greatly.
I love how you say with time we'll see which one wins. Now we live in an era of being a slashy. You can be all things all the time now. No need for you to choose.
You can do it all. If you have the energy, you've got the skill, you've got the support, then why not?
Absolutely. Tell me about the song that we opened up with, because it's an unusual sound for a lot of my listeners. And already when we dip, on the occasion that we dip into urban cultured music, we'll have somebody go, Bridget just played that song. So give us some context. Why you chose the song, why this particular song?
You know what? It's our Limpopo culture. When you hear Lukompo, you hear Limpopo. And I think it also carries, a very significant message, especially, when it comes to youth. We are able, we are capable, no matter what challenges that we face as young people. Because Milava is something like a barrier. I'd say it's a barrier. So now, if people get to put on these barriers, thinking that we won't win as young people, they're mistaken. We are definitely going to win, regardless of what challenges that we are facing as young people. So I think that is the significance. And I think every young person today who's listening, regardless of what they are facing, they should be able to say, yes, the challenges are there, but I can do it. I am capable. Yeah. So that's the significance.
I love that positive mindset. That young people are going to win regardless. Because it speaks to some of our conversation this afternoon around young people in South Africa, trying to understand what is the identity of South Africa's youth in 2026, 50 years post June 16, 1976. Trying to also unpack some of your agenda and your generational mission and contextualize that for us. And I think we'll be preoccupied with that for the greater part of the hour. And I know that you've curated, we left the curation of some of the guests to yourself, whom you're going to introduce to us in a moment. For now, though, from our end, we just want to take a quick break, get that out of the way, and then we'll come back now and we'll get into the full swing of things.
All right. I'll be on the line. I'll be waiting for you.
Keep moving through 6 a.m. call times, the rain, dirt tracks, and moving through tight deadlines. Because you move with purpose, from the first stop to the final drop. The Hino 700 truck tractor comes standard with a 6-year drivetrain warranty and advanced safety features tailored to your industry. The Hino 700 is built to fuel your business's progress. Hino, all the way.
Oh, yeah, Club Soweto. In 1976, youth switcher on, and for 50 years the nation has watched as the story unfolds. And namhlanje, courage looks the same and different. It looks like showing up when no one believes in you. It's about finding the strength to stand up again. The courage of 1976 is a pillar in 2026. SAPC 1, Mzansi for sure. The source of youth courage. My God.
From the class of 1976 to the generation of TikTok, AI, and unemployment, the conversation continues on SAfm, leading the conversations that move us.
It is the Full Circle with myself, Bridget Masinga, on SAfm for this special simulcast broadcast with Neo Ramashapa out at the radio turf at the University of Limpopo. You know, essentially, I should have let you just do this link. So I've sort of broken us back from break. You can then link us into the next segment where we'll be in conversation with some of your guests. So let me see what you got there, young lady broadcaster.
Let me tell you, Bridget, the studio is alive right now because I've got two beautiful young people in the studio. We have Mr. Morores Kukuna, who is the chairperson of UL Debating Society. He's also an honors student in political science. So that is very exciting as well. We also have Ms. Praise Mailila as well, secretary of UL Debating Society, who is also a student studying criminology and psychology. Her and I, we've got something in common. Guys, how are you guys doing? Welcome to the show.
Hi, Sis Neo. We're good, thank you. Thank you for the beautiful welcome. We are happy to be here.
We are happy to have you. Morora, how are you doing today?
I'm fine, thanks. And I'm not complaining. Yourself?
I'm okay. I'm really okay. It's also great to have you guys here on this important day, because today we're talking about something that is quite significant, and we're looking into, the theme. What exactly, or rather let me say the theme is, identity, culture, and social cohesion. And we are asking the question, what exactly is the identity, of South Africans youth in 2026? What exactly is the agenda, the mission, and the call to action today? So before we waste of time, maybe let me just get it, or rather allow you guys to have this conversation with me right away, right? And maybe let's start with you, Bridget. Not Bridget, but Praise. I'm sorry about that. What does identity mean to young people, and how does it form our culture and relate to social cohesion?
I think as young people, identity refers to who we are, who we relate to the most, and the things that we value as people, right? And you spoke about what then does that mean for us as young people, and I think it's a matter of continuing where those that came before us left, right? So this means that there were people that came before us, there's work that they put in, and now our generation mandate would then be to finish off what they have started, not to disregard it, not to try and change it, because there's not much we can change, not to derive from it, but to move on from the goal that they have already set, and to actually work towards achieving those.
Well said, Praise. Just before I get to you, Morora, just a reminder as well, we will be joined by Mr. Victor Khumiyeswana, who is also an Executive Director, Marketing and Communication right here in the University of Limpopo. By the way, he was one of those who directly faced the struggle of apartheid. So I'm also excited that he'll be joining us in a conversation in a bit. Back to you, Morora Kukune. Do you believe young people in South Africa today, are united around common goal? Or are we more divided than previous generation? I think this takes us back to what Praise had said, or we need to continue. What do you think about that?
Are we united? Sometimes, yes. You favor Chiefs, Pirates, or you're a fan of rugby or cricket. That's where you'd find a degree of unity. But also there are just micro-national identities that exist. Can we speak about the general unified identity? No. But there's a degree of identity that exists amongst us. Like, for example, we're members of the Debate Society, if you are to ask me. Are we united? Therefore, yes, we do have a united identity, I would assume, Praise. But I think the crisis or the rationale of your question seeks to address the crisis of the national identity. There aren't just identities that are formed out of common interest in our small groups. I think from a national identity, South Africa is not united, and the difficulty in establishing that identity is the commonality or the agreement of what identifies us as a unit. You find it's very much difficult to establish that. Can we say we are South Africans? We can say we are South Africans, but there are some loopholes that needs to be questioned. What is South Africa? When did it start? Who was it created for? Who created South Africa? When? Did it include
Everyone
the
of us.
people, everyone
Yeah.
in the conversation?
Yeah.
The answer is no. 1910, when South Africa was formed, it was formed intentionally to exclude people of the color of me and you, and only accommodated the other color. Remember,
sure.
it was immediately after the Anglo-Boer War. So if today, as young people, we are to proud ourselves of the national identity of being South African, are we really prouding ourselves with an identity that really originates from us? If not, then what is the common identity can we rally behind? Is it our skin color? But we have different tones.
Of course.
Is it our language? No, but we have different languages.
languages.
Is it our cultures? No, they are different.
Sure,
Traditions,
sure.
they're different. Then what unifies us? Do we have a common identity? No.
We don't.
It's so interesting, if I may jump in here.
Thank you, Bridget.
It's an interesting perspective that you raise, Morera, because I think it speaks to so many conversations that happen around this time of the year. Is the crisis of national identity you speak about in terms of who are South Africans. It seems like such a basic question, but it's such a loaded question because it speaks to so many of the challenges and the issues that South Africa is addressing today. Once we can conceive some kind of answer of who is South Africa or what is South Africa, so many things become clearer for us to address.
Yeah, absolutely. I do agree with you, Bridget. And I think, a lot have been said. And when they think of identity, they might think of it from a surface level. And I just liked how Morore went into, details in identifying, what exactly identity is.
Yeah.
I think we can go on, Bridget. How about that? I have another okay.
Well,
go on.
listen, before you even jump to your next question, so
Sure.
I want to ask this, and maybe for y'all to ponder on it, and you can double back to it at some point. But, a lot of conversation is placed on the generational mission, right? And one of the most famous quotes out there by Frantz Fanon says that each generation must, out of relative obscurity, discover its mission, fulfill it, or betray it. And I wonder, this generation, because that's another pressing issue 50 years into 1976, that commemoration, the other pressing issue becomes, what is this generation's agenda? And is there a collective agenda for the generation of 2026? And does it in any way speak or tie into the legacy of 1976?
Yeah.
A beautiful, beautiful question.
Speaking on a collective agenda, I think it would also then go back to what Morora was saying. The fact that we cannot say that we are united as a nation or as the young people of the nation, then it says to us we cannot have a united, or rather an agreement as to what then the general mission is going to be, right? What I want to achieve is not what Morora wants to achieve. What the people in Limpopo want to achieve is not what the people in Gauteng would like to achieve. Our struggles don't speak to us the same. So the struggles that we are facing here are going to be then the mandate that we want to achieve. The struggles that are faced in the other areas are then going to be that. But because we face different struggles with different oppressions, it then becomes difficult for us to have what we then can call a generational mission. But I think Morora can also dive into that from here.
Yeah, I think I can extend the severity of the question of generational mission. I think it's deep. It can't just be answered in a simple conversation that we're having that has limited time. I think issues such as a mission which is generational is heavily dependent on your status in the class. The mission of a person who has a net worth of 200 million is not the same as the mission of the person who sleeps hungry. And divided as we are in the country, there's no way we can agree on the common mission because we are not common.
Our struggles are different.
Our struggles are different. And the separation of the middle class, the lower middle class, the poor, the lumpen proletariats who are extremely poor, and then those who just don't have anything and sleep at the streets, and going the hierarchy. There's so much separation of our community that is hard to establish. What was simpler with the apartheid is that the separation was made clear, and it was made on the basis of race. You are either black and poor, or you are either white and rich. So it was a fight that, no, we need to balance the society, that my skin color should not be a determiner of the role I'm going to play in the economy.
Sure.
What can be a common identity of what is a generational mission? There are two. One is the economy, but it cripples back to the question of land, which is also very much difficult to make it a generational mission. For example, if we say that we take back the land to the original owners, which then becomes a generational mission for the young people to fulfill, it becomes then a question of who owns the land. Ngagatobi writes, the land is ours. I make an argument. It shouldn't be like that, because that opens up a space where then the land becomes a contested space forever.
Sure.
We take back the land to the original owners. The other original owners also want to take the back to the
land.
original owners. And the cycle will continue, and that is the space for conflict. My philosophy would be, let us not ask who owns the land. Let's ask, who does the land own, which is us? Do we all belong to the land, or to the land, or does the land belong to us? Those are some of the generational missions that could be established, but some existential questions need to be asked. Are we taking back the land to who? The original owners. To what extent what qualifies them being called the original owners? Is it migration? Is it what? Finding the land empty? Is it conquest? If it is the idea that conquest is the reason why the land was removed from the people, I mean, Kings Kukun and Shaga conquered other kingdoms in order to extend their land. If the very same form of conquest was used by black people to extend their land, why, when it was used by white people, it becomes wrong? Is it because of power balance? Then why are we having so it's broad and intersectional and has many components to it.
Of course.
Yeah.
Spoken like a true politician in the making. Let's just take a quick pause here, guys. We'll come back on the other side and continue this very important conversation that reflects on the past while charting a way into the future. We are in conversation with the youth out at the University of Limpopo for the Simulcast broadcast in honoring of Youth Month, and in particular on Youth Day. We're joined by co-host Neo Ramashapa, who hosts the midday experience out at Radio Turf. It's approaching 2:30 on the Full Circle with myself, Bridget Masinga, here on SAfm, leading the conversation. A quick pause and then we'll come back on the other side.
SAfm has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Under the code, we are committed to giving news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that is not harmful, does not amount to hate speech, or contain violence or explicit sex. If you think we are not living up to that code, then you can inform the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Direct any complaints in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. PO Box 142365, Craig Hall 2024. Fax to 011-326-3198 or an email to bccsa@nabsa.co.za. For more information, please visit www.bccsa.co.za. 50 years later, Youth Month, the voices.
I saw a boy of about 11 going down at the police fire. I could not believe it. Apparently, when Hector was shot, the students ran back, and I was left with Hector and a girl. I was feeling scared, and I wanted to run away too.
For those who worked before us, your Hector Peterson, we honor them even this day. Because even if you're fighting a different fight, they paved the way for us now to continue the fight. It may be in a different form, but it's still the same fight. As a black young child, you are fighting systems, you are fighting politicians, you're fighting. So I think we do have the fight. It's just different.
Different generations, different experiences. One South Africa. 50 years later. Only on SAfm. Leading the conversations that move us.
It has just gone 2:30 on the Full Circle with myself, Bridget Masinga. We're having the conversations that lead the nation, and today that conversation involves South African young people from the University of Limpopo. Throughout the course of the day, we have been engaged in simulcast broadcasts on all of our shows, bringing in young broadcasters and a community of guests that was specifically curated by them to be a part of this afternoon's reflections. We're asking some important questions and traversing really pertinent conversation as we hit this 50th commemoration landmark. And at the center of those questions is, what is the identity of South Africa's youth in 2026? And what does identity speak to when we speak to culture, social cohesion, and all these themes that really hold up a mirror of self-introspection and reflection for all of us as South Africans. And the youth is part and parcel of these dynamic conversations, because really they are the people who should be sitting at the head of the table. They are the people who should be participating in the conversations that essentially affect their lived experience. And so we thought, what better way to get them to really take up the baton and lead the charge, then inviting them on to the station and onto the platform for a simulcast conversation. My co-conspirator is a young broadcaster on the Midday Experience at the University of Limpopo. She hosts a Midday Experience on Radio Turf. Neo Ramashapa is joining me, and a host of studio guests that she is invited to be a part of the conversation. And I think getting into this part of the conversation, the other thing that I wanted to ask is this question of the burden of this legacy. Do you as young people feel that it's an unfair burden to live up to the ideals and the tenacity and even the sense of agency of the youth of 1976?
Yeah, sure.
Can I take it?
Yeah.
I don't think there's any successful revolution that we can consider successful if it was negotiated.
Okay.
Every successful revolution that we can think of in history, the French Revolution, the American Revolution, and all other revolutions, were never in any of their stages negotiated, because then compromises the principles. Remember, when we negotiate, we need to meet in the middle ground. And the middle ground of a person who's unprivileged is mostly the ground of the person who's unprivileged. So the negotiations were negotiated in the ground of black people, and therefore so much was compromised in that place. So my argument is, the burden is not yet fulfilled, because then it was negotiated to be fulfilled, and it fulfilled to certain individuals. There was once a lecture that it was a public lecture, and the person who gave that particular public lecture, I'm not going to mention name, but it was part of Godesa. And he was saying, we negotiated in the national interests. The people wanted 1, 2, 3. The people want to. And at the end, I asked him, which people did you have any form of collective agreement from Africans to say this is what we really want? Or was it the collective that negotiated? They came up with their own interests, and they negotiated the interests as the interests of the people. It's like the SRC right now having their own meeting, and then they say the students wanted 1, 2, 3, but they've never in one situation met with the students and said. So the burden that these people had and carried was never fulfilled.
Sure.
And that is why we still have the problems we have now.
Thank you so much, Mororo, for that. Bridget, I think, we've heard, the views of the young people. And I think it's time we can, bring someone who was directly in the struggle, who faced the struggle, on face on, and that is Mr. Victor Khomieswana, who is an executive director of marketing and communication from the University of Limpopo. And I think the question to him would be, as much as we're talking about social cohesion and everything, we think we're not there yet. I don't think we are there yet as young people. And I want to ask him, What does he think, or rather, how can young people, contribute to building greater social cohesion and even a sense of solidarity in a country that is still grappling with inequality, unemployment, and all the social divisions that we are facing today?
Victor?
Oh, there you go. All right. Now, I didn't know. Was that loaded question was for me?
Yeah, sure, Mr. Victor.
Well, good afternoon, Bridget and Neo and Morore and Priya. It's quite an honor to be with you on this special day.
Yeah,
I cannot say that. I mean, young people are exactly who they think they are. It sounds very simplistic, but it's true that whatever they think they are today, that's it. My wish for young people is that they should take a more keen interest in their own history, because that history will give them pointers as to what they have inherited, what has been the struggle of their people. By people, I mean African people. And once you understand that, you are able to forge unity among people with whom you have a common, shall I say, destiny, interest, desires, aspirations. And once you unite them, you can then organize them for power, for effectiveness. Because it's not enough to be united around a cause. It's important to be united, but also organized. The reason we are united at funerals when there's grief, and then we go away. We are united at church on Sunday, but then we go away during the rest of the week. The reason we never translate that into better life is because if you look at the Jewish community, if you look at, they go to the same church and they do business as Jewish people. They have the same values that they adhere to. So for them, whatever problems they faced 100 years ago, they are still united about what was wrong back then, what needs to be done today. They are organized through the banks, through the different institutions that give them the power, the economic means to be able to control whatever they control. You can look at any community, any society, any group that ever dominated. They have always been united around a cause, their aspirations. They have been organized across all levels of society, and most of all, they share values. Now, I don't know if young people today are operating at that level. Well, I don't even think people my generation are operating at that level, so I can't say it's a young person's conundrum. It's a South African conundrum that we are not quite united around the same cause. If you talk to people about what they want to do on any given day, some will say Majanga Commission, another one will say I want Pirates to win, the other one will say, okay, is that going to take us any further? And then you ask, even if we agree about what we need to do, like fight unemployment, are we organized to achieve the common objective? Do we have a common program of agenda or program of action? No. And last but not least, as African people, because we have 80% of the population, we have common values, or are we divided as we are? On every weekend, everybody's Baptist, some other is Catholic, another one is ZCC, and we're just going in different directions. We never quite say, this is where we're united and we share values. So I'm asking young people to inform themselves about these challenges that face their generation. Because that's what Friends for Non-Net.
Yeah. Victor, those are such salient points that you bring up. And interesting, I've been listening to the promos that we've been running on our end leading up to this day. And we have a promo that says, and I'm paraphrasing, but celebrating the generation of AI, TikTok, and unemployment. And I think that speaks such volumes of where this generation finds themselves, because in many ways they've progressed in leaps and bounds, even from, where you've left off, where millennials left off. They've taken that baton and really have run with it in the most impressive of ways. However, also it seems on the other end of the spectrum, in many ways, it feels as though they've been left stagnant. And that blame can be left squarely on the heels, ironically enough and sadly enough, can be left on the heels of the leaders of 1976 who are in leadership today.
Definitely. I mean, let's simplify first. let's talk Soweto. You walk through Soweto today, and that Soweto is proxy for any township, every village. You find schools that produce people like Jomo Sono, people like Kaiser Mutau, schools that produce Sipho Hot Sticks Mabuse. On any given day, that school, when Sipho Mabuse went to school, had cultural programs, recreational programs. They had SCM, they had dance, they had all kinds of recreational activities, they had sport. So people like Jomo would have gone to school to play soccer, but to play soccer they had to be at school all day. And eventually some of them might not have turned pro in soccer, but they became teachers. Today, if you walk through Soweto or any township or any village, those schools have parceled out the grounds on which sports grounds were being located or situated. They either have built something on it or the land has just been neglected. So we expect young people like Morore, as energized, as passionate as they are, to sit at school the whole day listening to us, writing on chalkboards, and then sit in the afternoon without play, without sport, without letting out their energy, without expressing their artistic gift, without doing anything recreational. And we just think they will become leaders. How? Because you are never just intelligent because you are passing geology, biology, and mathematics and English. You are intelligent sometimes because you are a Lionel Messi, and your real destiny is on the football pitch. And if we don't give the young people the opportunity to realize their full spectrum of gifts, we have let them down. So people who run schools, people who run, we have left it to the young people to organize themselves. The very debate that Morore is talking about. Schools where I went to in the 70s had debate as a sport. But I became a public speaker because there was a sport called debate at school. Everybody had a chance to realize their potential. So I agree, Bridget, that we have to take responsibility as leaders, because I don't think we give priority to the whole school development, to the holistic development of the young people. And if we don't give them that chance, we can't then expect them to be dynamic. TikTok could be a solution if we gave them the content about which to TikTok.
Absolutely. Just looking at the time from now, my end, Nero, unfortunately, we have to begin to wind down the conversation in the last 2 minutes. But I thought that maybe it would be befitting for you as a young broadcaster in conversation with your guests to maybe be the one who takes the lead in terms of just reflecting. If we had to look back 50 years from today, in as far as you guys are concerned.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much, Bridget. I think a lot have been said. And I think Morora would like to say something right now, because a lot have been said by Mr. Khomeswan. Morora, would you like to say something just before I ask something?
Yeah, I just want to ask Mr. Khomeswan a question.
But we're wrapping up. Remember?
Yeah, we're wrapping up.
Sure.
So I think in the premise, in the question that they asked, where the generation left of things, like there's a need for the contemporary youth to take things from where they have left them. My question is, why did they leave things there? And they're still alive. Why are we expected to carry the things from where they have left?
Okay, I think that's a very, very nice question. Morora, I don't know if Mr. Victor Khomeswana would like to answer, but I know he'd go.
I'll give a very brief answer.
Thank you.
The mistake we made, Bridget, Nero, Morora, and Tree, is that we thought when Nelson Mandela came out of prison, the struggle was over. We mistakenly believed that. We really, I'm speaking for myself. I particularly thought, okay, hey, we're done. And we left things to people who didn't quite understand. And then when 94 came, even worse. We thought, now we are free, and we left everything that we were doing to I don't know who. We left the education of our children to people who don't look like them, who don't speak like them. We took our children out of townships. We sent them to suburbs. We allowed our children. So I'm saying in brief, we believed that we had achieved the goal, and then we left everything else to people we didn't know, people whose vision and ours were not aligned.
I think that's why African history is not even taught in schools that much today, and it's so scary. But now as we wrap up, Bridget, I think I'd like to ask both, my beautiful guests in the studio, if, future generations were to look back, at the youth of 2026, maybe 50 years from now, what would you want them to remember about your generation's contribution to South Africa? What would you want them to say about you? You know?
That we are the generation that tried their best to at least pick up from where Mr. Victor is saying that they left off, right?
Sure.
And how do we go about this? In reaching out to those that don't actually know much about their history and trying to teach them this history. Like he's saying, recreational activities. We are in debate. We try to start debates in every school that is around us so that these conversations can start. Because the only way someone in grade 9 knows about these things is because they are studying history. But if they don't take history as a subject, this means chances are they are not aware of these things. But when we bring then debate and all these other recreational activities that allows for them to be to open up their minds, to be conscientized and all these things, then we can say that is what we did as the youth of 2026.
Thank you so much, Praise. That's beautiful. And for you, Murore?
I would say we're the youth that, a revolution is leaving one point and returning to that point. I think we're the youth that, as Mr. Homoisona said, they thought everything was completed. We're the youth that had to carry the second revolution, leaving from the point where the cycle was completed to start a new cycle. But in this case, the conditions were different, because the conditions now is that we are conditioned to believe everything is fine. It's fine for me to have this particular suffering, because in comparison during apartheid it was more harder. So it is more psychological, it is more nuanced. You're likely not going to identify it without platforms like debate where rigorously we need to engage what exactly is the problem. That's why even now it's difficult to establish what is the generational mission, but during apartheid it was there, very clear that this is the generational mission. So we're the generation that had to re-establish what is our generational mission in a very difficult times where it is not clear what is the generational mission, or what the problem is, or who creates the problem, or why the problem exists, or what is the solution to the problem that exists, if the problem exists.
Bridget, it's really fire in here. You can tell a lot has been said, and I think we are grateful as well for platforms like this, because this is where we get to challenge some of the social issues that we are faced with as young people of South Africa today. And man, I think this is it. It has been amazing talking to both Praise and Murore this beautiful afternoon. And I'm grateful because I've learned a lot as well from my end.
Well, listen, you guys definitely carried out a very thought-provoking conversation indeed. And I think you agitated a lot of South Africans from where they sit to really just take a moment and reflect on their own individual contribution to the collective success of this beautiful country, in the hopes that at some point down the line we get to realize Mandela's dream of a rainbow nation. For this afternoon, we'll leave it there. To my young co-host Neo Ramashapa and her guest, thank you so much for being a part of this Simulcast broadcast. May you enjoy the rest of the show, presuming you're wrapping at 3 o'clock, so giving you enough time to just play a few more bangers, some more Limpopo bangers from your end.
Of course.
Have a great one, Newa. That was
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Bridget. Been amazing, having a chat with you. I hope we do this, more frequently. It shouldn't be on Youth Day, but I think even going further, there's a lot that we can do just to have platforms like this where great, social issues are challenged by conversation, of course. But thank you so much for making my day today.
Absolutely. We'll take a break from our end on the Full Circle with myself, Bridget Masinga, leading the conversations that move the nation. It's 10 to 3 o'clock. A quick pause, and then we come back on the other side and we begin to wind down the show. We're going to be in conversation with researcher at the Mapungubwe Institute for Strategic Reflection.
Babe, I'm getting extra cash from my insurance. I was thinking, romantic getaway or a treat for the kids?
You're getting money from your insurer?
Yes, my cash back from my way. I'll get back 10% of my monthly premiums for staying claim-free for 2 years. I'm getting 5,680 Rand.
Now that's real cash.
Real people, real cars, real rewards. For a quote, visit myway.co.za. My cashback is a feature on qualifying products paid after 2 claim-free years and all premiums paid. Premiums are risk profile dependent. MyWay is a licensed non-life insurer and FSP. T's and C's apply. MyWay. Live your way.
Life isn't only about what happens around us, it's also about what happens within us. Join SAfm for Reflections from this Sunday on The Alternative Breakfast, a weekly space for thoughtful conversations about life, purpose, relationships, and the human experience. Different voices, fresh perspectives, practical wisdom. Because sometimes the most important conversations are the ones that help us understand ourselves and each other. Reflections about life, meaning, and the ties that bind us. Only on SAfm, leading the conversations that move us.
The Thabo Mbeki Foundation, in collaboration with Classics on Turf, presents a tribute concert honoring the life and music works of Tio Soga, one of the most remarkable South African composers and literary giants of the 19th century. His music and teachings continue to be celebrated 2 centuries later. Join Afro Soul and Jazz musician Mandi Sijanjis, the Renaissance Singers, and the Chamber Orchestra of Johannesburg under Maestro Kutlwano Masote as they breathe new life into the hymnody of Tio Soga on Saturday, the 20th of June, on the stage at the Wits Great Hall. The concert starts at 7 p.m. and tickets can be booked at Web Tickets for 300 Rand, honoring the legacy of Tio Soga, made possible by Wiphold and supported by SAfm.
From the class of 1976 to the generation of TikTok, AI, and unemployment, the conversation continues on SAfm, leading the conversations that move us.
My name is Sirpan Precious and I'm a student of University of Limpopo. For me, June 16 is a day that makes me feel blessed, privileged, proud, and also emotional. I feel privileged because I have access to free education today because of the freedom that the youth fought for. I feel blessed because not everyone has access to the type of education that most of us get access to in this generation. And it is all because of the youth that fought for our freedom. And I'm emotional, particularly sad because we lost some of the youth that would have formed the part of our generation today. And I am proud because it's not everyone that can stand for what they think is right for them. People are silenced, but then our youth, our Africans did not let the harassment that they were facing to silence them. They fought and they made it and they fought for us. And I'm proud of that, and I'm proud of them. The late ones, the present ones, I am proud.
Hi, my name is Nancy Mutupa. So the 16th of June remembers the students who stood up for themselves in 1976 against something they knew was wrong. For me personally, it means I have a responsibility to think for myself, speak up when it matters, and know the difference between right and wrong. It also reminds me not to put myself under pressure or risk my reputation unless it is for something worth it. Yeah, thank you. Bye.
And those are some reflections coming from South African youth, and in particular, students that are on campus with my co-host, Neo Ramashapa. For now, though, we are going to be in conversation with Lwanda Makwelane, who's a researcher at the Mapungubwe Institute for Strategic Reflection. How are you doing this afternoon, Lwanda?
I'm very good, Bridget, and good afternoon to you and your viewers, and Neo at the University of Limpopo.
Thank you so much for the time. I mean, first and foremost, maybe let's get some context around MISTRA and the work that you guys do.
Well, we are I would say we are a think tank that is very future-orientated in the terms of the type of work that we do in South Africa, in the region as well, in terms of the continent. But we have done considerable work around the issue of the youth through our publications. We wrote a book in 2021 looking at youth in South Africa in terms of agency, the visibility, and the national development question. And as I was listening to some of the conversation, from the University of Limpopo, the key issues that emerged there, align perfectly with the key recommendations that came from that book, which speaks to the mainstreaming of youth development, the need to increase youth visibility and harness agency. If we look at youth identities and well-being, what does that mean in relation to now? And if we really start then tackling the much bigger questions in terms of youth unemployment, the issues of youth entrepreneurship and social support, but most importantly, if we look now at the issues of education and skills that allow for the youth to transition effectively into the labor market in meaningful ways that allows youth to be, productive and active agents of the South African economy and the society in broad terms.
A lot of what you're saying, Luanda, and I know we've got limited time this afternoon, really just wrapping up this conversation. A lot of what you're saying also speaks to what the president highlighted today, and part of his parting shots were we need to do better at preparing the youth for their future. Does your research speak to exactly that when it reflects on the agency, the resilience, and also just those structural challenges that are faced by South African youth? How do we begin to prepare them for their future?
Of course it does. And if we people can call into Mr. and request some of the books that we've written. But I think when we speak about agency, it's agency that needs to be structurally supported, right? So it cannot just be a youth going out there and saying, I need this, and there are no tangible and feasible pathways that are supported through state intervention and public-private partnerships. So if we go to, I'll just take a contemporary example. If you look at the G20 and some of the pledges that came through, particularly if you look at the 300 million loan and the 7 million grant that was given by the EU and effectively the French Development Bank, that is looking at reviving Transnet and looking at the green hydrogen economy, then we need to ask ourselves, are our provisioning institutions, right, which is your higher education, your TVETs, and your community provisioning institutions, are they actually responding to the demands of the labor market? Are we creating enabling conditions for a child from Mkanduli, for a child from wherever, where it's a rural place? Are we creating those conditions to say, here is a pathway, go through here. Once you have the certification or area of specialization, this is a job that you can get into. So even from the youth perspective, it's very important for us to actually understand the labor market in terms of the supply and demand, but also hold government accountable for that, right?
Yeah.
So we need to go back and actually understand, with these many, we have this new thing, well, it's not new now, in terms of the just energy transition. We've even had, the government has even institutionalized institutions like the Presidential Climate Commission, and we even have policy frameworks that guide that, like the Direct Implementation Plan of 2023 to 2026 and 2027, I'm sorry. So when we look at that, we need to hold it accountable to say, these jobs that you're identifying in these emerging markets and these jobs that are predicated on loan conditions and grant conditions, what do these jobs look like?
Yeah.
Are they jobs that are decent jobs? And are they jobs that will enable growth and development, that will have overarching effects in terms of creating the entrepreneurship needed to support the job?
Unfortunately, we do have to leave it there today, but you leave us with questions that need concrete answers if we are to secure the future of the likes of Neo. Neo, I'm literally saying goodbye because in 2 seconds we have to take the news with Greg Gross.
Yeah. Same this side. Thank you so much, Bridget, for having me today. It has been amazing, and till I don't know when, but thank you so much. Have a lovely one.
Same to you. We'll do it again. It's at 3:00 on the dot. It's time for Greg Gross and the top of the hour news.
Thank you again. Body of missing man found in Mpumalanga, and Ramaphosa praises the youth of 1976. Good afternoon. The body of a 21-year-old man who went missing following a car crash near the Crocodile River in Mbombela and in Mpumalanga has been found. He went missing after the vehicle they were travelling in failed to stop at an intersection and then plunged into the river. 2 others who were in the vehicle with him were found on the same day. President Cyril Ramaphosa says despite many challenges facing young people, a lot has been done by a democratic state to change their lives for the better.